what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to kind of a impromptu Bronze Beat podcast. Um, you know, it ends today. It ended today. The season is over. We're gonna kind of discuss the game, discuss the season, and a couple other things. But as far as the future goes and everything, big decisions, and obviously longer in the off season, we'll have free agency, who we bringing back, the draft, all that stuff we will be covering, and all that. But today, Tristan and I are here. You know us, not really, but the usual. We're here to discuss today and just kind of everything that went on. Tristan, I would ask you how you're doing, but I got a feeling, just like me, you're pretty sad, I would imagine.
Yeah, like honest to God, like it's not even anger, like it's just disappointment, man, disappointment. Um, yeah, I mean we'll get into it, but yeah, just a very disappointing way to end this year. But uh, yeah, jeez, this is very hard to
Yeah.
transition and talk right now. So for those who are listening to this, and this will probably come out later, um, we're recording this like the last whistle was like an hour ago. Like this is still so fresh, and it hurts a lot. So this is gonna be a podcast where I think both of us are gonna be all over the place. Because yeah, but how are you doing, Derek?
Oh, well, obviously, I mean, I think I kind of feel the same way you do, and I've talked to a couple people since this game has ended, and everybody's kind of feeling the same way. It's not really anger. I mean, for me, it was anger during the game. Like, I was pissed off during the game. But now, it's just kind of like, and we'll get into it, but man, we had some magic in a bottle, and the way that this season has gone and everything leading up to this point, and the fact that it ends the way it did, it just kind of hurt. It hurt to see a team that had so much heart, so much life just die. And that's, for me, that's what I felt like. I felt like, we just saw the death of this team today, and it sucks. Um, I'm not really mad anymore. It's just, I just can't believe it's over. And I assume you probably feel the same way. Like, I can't believe this team that we watched beat the 49ers and beat the Ravens and all these tight games and all the ups and downs of this season. I just can't believe it's over. Um, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah, same page, man. You know, it's not even just like that it's over. Like, yeah, that's certainly a huge part of it. Um, but it's the way we went out
mhm.
for me. It's just like, like you didn't even have a chance. You got murdered, absolutely murdered, and everything fell apart. And it doesn't make sense that everything fell apart now, of any time, now. That's the hardest part for me. Is just I don't understand it.
Mhm.
I don't understand it. How a team goes from being the most resilient team in the league, uh, dealing with so much, fighting through so much, yet finding consistency within your play, um, even with the chaos going on around you. And yet, this was your worst game. Like this wasn't even like the people that'll say like that Baltimore game that we lost or the Rams game. This is the worst loss this season. This was the worst this team looked all season. Um, because you could say technically Baltimore, like the offense was so bad. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to put like it's just the first half defense fell completely apart, and the second half the offense fell completely apart. And we haven't had necessarily that. I don't know, man. It's just so weird how this unfolded.
Yeah. I felt like I wasn't watching the Browns today. It felt like and
Exactly.
this is why, and this is kind of a bigger conversation. And you mentioned it. We're probably going to be all over the place. We'll figure it out. But when it comes to the resting starters thing, there is something to be said about momentum. And I don't mean this like as trying to be or sound smart, because that's not it at all. Like I completely understand. Like, yes, rest your starters, don't risk injury going into the playoffs. But I think for people who kind of look at it from a perspective of almost like playing Madden, right? Like, oh, it's the same team, you should be able to just pick up where you left off, right? That's not how the real world works. Like, that's not how football works, unfortunately. And sometimes you get into a rhythm and then you lose it. Like, that's something that happens. Um, and I'm not saying that's what happened with this team, but I think the Browns were a team, Tristan, that were put together by duct tape, band-aids, and cheap super glue. And, we made it work. We did. And I think that's a testament to multiple different people. And it's a testament to the locker room. But the problem is, at some point, if it's not sustainable, then it's not sustainable. And I think maybe we convinced ourselves that it was when it wasn't. Um, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Led the NFL in turnovers
Mm-hmm.
and snuck in. Joe Flacco was throwing like at least one pick, most games at least two, every single game. We were putting the ball on the ground a lot as a team, even though that necessarily today didn't kill us. And we were relying on this otherworldly defense, but also the ability to push the ball down the field. And uh, you know, today the defense wasn't otherworldly, got absolutely diced up. Um, and we couldn't push the ball down the field because the Texans schemed for
Mm-hmm.
it. They quite literally said, you know what? We're going to shut down your run and we're going to take away the deep pass. If we're going to get beat, Joe's going to have to do tiny little cuts, paper cuts, and it's going to have to beat us. And they took they took that gamble and it paid off for them. And it was like, I don't want to take anything away from the Houston Texans here. They were phenomenal. They came out ready to play. They fought like hell on their home turf. CJ Stroud was fantastic. Um, Bobby Slowick, their offensive coordinator. I will be shocked if he returns as the Texans offensive coordinator. I mean, I think I've talked to you about him. Like, I like him a lot. And today showed why he got his opportunity to play with his guys against this defense and absolutely killed us. Absolutely killed us. Um, yeah, uh, yeah. I mean, do you want to transition into the game at this point? Like,
Uh,
do you want to keep on?
well, I
I'll let you take this because I'm
I want
yeah.
before we talk about the game itself, there's two quick things. I didn't even think about this before we hit record. Like you said, this is gonna be all over the place. And people forgive us because there's those stages of processing and understanding, and I think we're still in that processing phase, so it's kind of hard to talk about it, but it's what we do. So here we are. Um, but before we get into the game, I have I have two questions, and I want to do each of these individually. So I'm going to start off with the first one. This has been, like we said, an incredible year through everything, um, all the different hills and roadblocks and stepping stones you got to move past. Um, Question I had watching this game, two questions, but one of them, Kevin Stefanski has had an unbelievable year. I think he has really shown himself to be a great head coach in the NFL. And heading into this game, I think, there are people of other fan bases who will say otherwise, but I think for the most part, Kevin Stefanski had the coach of the year locked up. For me, coming out of this game, and I'm sure, you'll have a lot to say on this as well. Maybe it's just an immediate reaction thing, But Tristan, I thought D'Amico Ryans today just absolutely coached circles around us as a unit. I'm not just saying Kevin Stefanski, because Jim Schwartz, you talked about it with Slovic. Jim Schwartz got absolutely embarrassed today. Like that, his defense got absolutely wiped the floor with with everybody on that defense. And that's a whole different discussion. Why this Browns team plays so well defensively at home and goes on the road and shits the bed is beyond me. I've never seen anything like it. I don't understand it. Um, but when it comes to this Coach of the Year thing for Kevin Stefanski, do you think that he still has it? Do you think that it's still a possibility for him? Like, how do you feel, especially going up
Yeah.
against D'Amico Ryans? Because I think those are the only two. I think those are the only two.
Oh, 100%. Those are the two finalists for sure. Um, if I'm not mistaken, the votes for all of that stuff is already turned
Oh,
in
okay.
because it's technically a regular season award. So I don't think tonight changes any voting because I'm almost 100%. Excuse me, almost 100% certain that the voting is already in for that stuff. They're just counting up the voting, getting presentations ready, getting whatever they need ready to announce that stuff. But um, uh, the thing with today is like things went so wrong that you know, and we'll get into this. It started on the defensive side of the ball. This offense first half was
Mm-hmm.
great. Like I thought they were great. The last three possessions of the first half weren't great. Uh, this is something else we'll talk about, but they were put in terrible
Mm-hmm.
spots. Um, and the way this team is built, the way it's constructed, we can't win like that. So I don't think personally it doesn't change anything for me, because the fact that we got here,
Yeah.
the fact that we that the fact that we got here and the way that we got here, um, both for me still say like, yeah, Kevin's still a fantastic coach. Just change that. I still think he's coach of the
Mm-hmm.
year. Although I think we can also say, on the other hand, what D'Amico Ryans has done with that Texans team is absolutely fantastic. Um, this Texans team, what CJ Stroud is doing on the offensive side of the ball is absolutely fantastic. And I felt like D'Amico, his defense in the first half, I didn't think was all that spectacular. And then kind of like towards the end of the second half, it really clicked on. And then, I mean, two pick sixes,
Mm-hmm.
like game's done. Like, so for me, it's hard to judge. It's hard for me to judge coaching in that game when a lot of the failure for the Browns today and a lot of the success for the Texans came from um, individual success and individual failure. So, like, I thought that, that's not fair to say for the Texans because they came in with a great game plan. They did. Um, I remember talking when we first were playing the Texans. Um, Actually, I'll get into that later. Um, I felt like a lot of today for the Browns' failures was based on individual players not playing well. Um, and as a result of that, um, the coaching by the Texans, they really went after players, individual players that they thought that they could pick on. And this whole year, other teams have been doing that and it hasn't worked. And they got it done today. But again, I think it was a lot of just flat out getting beat up by the guy in front of you. It's hard for me to say that coaching was a huge influence in this game when we lost by like what 4 or 5 scores, something like
Yeah.
that. So that's not coaching. That's not
Yeah.
coaching.
Yeah. I mean, I I don't know. I think when it comes to like the Coach of the Year thing, that's something that gets overblown by NFL fans and different fan bases more than anything. Um, but I thought it was a question for sure that I think
Yeah,
deserve to be.
yeah, it's not a terrible
Yeah, I
question.
think
Yeah.
it deserves to be asked. Now, will it matter when it comes time for who's coach of the year? Probably not. Especially on the flip side, if those votes are already done, then who knows? But um, and I guess because of that, we can make this short for this next one. But Miles Garrett, I think it's worth bringing up at least. And the defensive player of the year conversation. Miles Garrett has been unreal all year. And at the beginning of the year, we talked about it. The moves made on this defensive line, bringing in Zadarius Smith, bringing in Obo Gronkwo, has helped him out massively. And you use the secondary in the right way, have them in man, you can trust those guys to buy time for that front four to get there. And Miles Garrett has had one of, if not the most productive year he's ever had in the NFL. Today, I feel like Miles really did nothing. I feel like he was more of a big name on the field than anything. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way at all to Miles. That's just, to me, a testament how great the Texans game planned for him, right? We've seen Miles Garrett be neutralized by teams like the Steelers. And then other times you have like the Bengals who would just be like, oh, well, he's another player. Good luck. And today I think the Texans absolutely, just shut him down and made him a non factor. When it comes to the Defensive Player of the Year, obviously this is a year long award and this is a more than just one game thing. Um, but based on what we've seen from Miles today, do you think that has changed at all? I mean,
No, no. I mean, the issue today wasn't Miles on the D line. Like for me, like you know, the whole like second half of the season, NFL officiating is really cranked down or not cranked down and let go of holding a lot, and you see it all over the league, like Micah Parsons, Max Crosby, um, uh, Danielle Hunter, like guys like that have been getting held for the past like half of the season, and just teams are getting away with it. Um, and when you look at what the Texans did to neutralize Miles, um, they pretty much made it impossible for him as an individual to succeed today. So like a, every single play, there was chips, there was double teams. Not only that, but they've got Laramie Tunsil, man, and Laramie Tunsil, he's a legit All Pro level left tackle. I thought he got disrespected by being left off of the All Pro list because for me, he was one of the top two left tackles in the NFL this year. Um, and I feel like he proved that in that game. He had a great game, and especially after being hurt and coming back, like that's just resilience by him. Um, the resilience that we had seen on our side of the ball the whole year. And the Texans had it today. I mean, they were banged up coming into this one. Their whole defensive line, I don't think any of them practiced until like Thursday or Friday. Um, you know, a lot of players for them were banged up and injured and hurt. They came out and they brought it to us. So, um, to answer the question, no, I think if we go back and uh, is this a good game from Miles? A great game? No, obviously not. But I don't. Let me say this: it wasn't so bad that it should change our minds as far as what his regular season was. It wasn't that
mhm.
bad. Like I just think he didn't have a chance today. Um, but yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts about like that? Obviously, again, I'm almost certain all the votes are already counted, and it's a regular season award, so this should not count towards it.
Yeah.
But I mean, what are your thoughts and stuff like that?
I mean, the reason why I bring it up is because I think, I don't know, like I said, fans will, and I think this is more so fans, but this also leaks over into the media aspect. People will overreact to one game. They'll overreact to one game, right? If you ask some people on the street right now, random fans, like, what do you think about CJ Stroud? there are people who would legitimately say, "Hey, this guy is one of the best top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL right now." And I'm not disagreeing saying he could get there. I mean, absolutely he can, but like that would be an immediately overreaction to having a really good game. That's kind of how I feel with Miles right now, and this is why I bring up the question is because I think based on how people react, I could see people taking this game and saying he didn't make an impact. He didn't do anything. Like, why is this guy going to be DPOY? Um, but to your point, what Miles has done this season has been incredible for multiple different reasons. Um, and I think you shouldn't take away from him what he's done this year based on this game. But I definitely, if he does get it, which I do think he should, and same thing with Kevin, right? Same thing with Kevin and Coach of the Year. Um, if they get it or one of them gets it, don't be surprised if you hear why. What did he do? Why, why was he given this? They got blown out against the Texans. And that's completely unwarranted and unfair to judge somebody based on one game. But
Well, if we were going to judge somebody for one game, we should say that, D'Amico Ryans has no business being in the coach of year conversation because the Browns absolutely smoked him in the regular season, and it's a regular season award. But we're not saying that. We're
yeah,
saying even with that loss, he's still in that running. Absolutely. He's number 2 candidate, number 1 or number 2. For some people, it's one or the other, and I can't blame people who put D'Amico Ryans above Kevin Stefanski because the job he's done has been spectacular. But
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But I definitely think for both of them it'll be interesting just on the reaction side of things. But let's transition here. I know I don't want to do it. I know you probably don't want to either, but uh we should talk about the game. um,
Yeah.
the Browns got absolutely slaughtered. I did not see this coming whatsoever. Um And that's just what it is. The Browns got absolutely manhandled on that field. Offense in the second half, defense in the first half, and really the second half. I mean, Tristan, um, there's multiple different lanes we could go with this, and why things happened the way they did. But before we get into offense, defense, special teams, whatever, just overall general opinions. I'll give you mine first because I'll be really quick. I was very disappointed. I think this team had a lot more in them. I think that there was a point in the game where the momentum completely turned, and I feel like we let them have it. I think there really wasn't that fight that we've seen this year, and that scares me. That's really disappointing. Um, I'm not gonna hate on Joe Flacco. I know a lot of people will. Um, but at some point, the reality of his situation had to come into effect. And reality is, he is at the very end of his career. Pretty much all he's have has been given. And, he made a lot of key mistakes today. And ultimately, I think that's why the Texans got what they got. Like you said, 2 pick sixes. That's, you can't have that. Can't even have one, let alone 2. So, a lot to get into, but just overall, it's hard. It's very hard sitting where we're at right now to
Yeah.
to even put it into words and try to understand because none of this makes sense at all, at least to me. But Tristan, just in general reaction. Before we get into the details of it, what are some of your biggest takeaways, I guess?
Yeah, so Kevin Stefanski after the game, he came out and he pretty much said that we picked the worst week to have our worst game. Um, and I think that sums it up really. Every team has bad games. Every team struggles at times in the season. And again, this was just one of those where it was our worst game. For me, I still feel like if we were to play this game again, if we were to play this game 10 times, I think we win at least 5. I still do. This game, and this is the thing that sucks. That absolutely sucks about this game is I feel like this game is going to just create a whole lot of negativity towards the offseason because of the way that we lost it. The just like the first game that we played them, this is not an accurate depiction of the talent level of these two teams. I really don't feel that way. Um, like I think that we got to look at this game, and the reality is, yes, we got our ass kicked. We absolutely got it handed to us. But are we confident that if this was like a best of 3, we don't come back and like
Yeah,
win the next 2? Like I would feel
I
confident
completely agree.
because there's no way we could play that. There's no way we could play worse than that. But the reality is, this is the NFL,
Hmm.
and it's the NFL playoffs. You can only you're a week by week team.
Yep.
You know, you're only as good as you are this week. Nothing that happens before matters. Regular season, playoff, forget it. Throw it out the window. And you're going to see a lot of the national media saying the Browns are not that good. The Browns, overrated, yada, 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 whatever.
Hmm.
No. This team, I guarantee if this team played this game again, we would not see it this bad. The Texans still might win,
Hmm.
because they're a talented football team. And they showed that today. But it does not look this bad. Yeah. So before we get into the details, Derek, any final thoughts?
No, I agree with you. I think, last thing I'll say real fast is I think people got to understand the game of football is determined by so many different things that you really don't even think about. And like you said, you mentioned it. A lot of the biggest problems here were individual problems, and it's a team sport. Each guy's got to do their job. I think there were certainly some players today that didn't do their job well enough, and you paid for that. But also, and we'll get into it, but the little things, right? The Browns not getting the ball out of the second half, I thought was huge because at that point in the game, the Texans are going down, and then they get the ball coming out of half. It's like, man, you got to be able to build some momentum, and I feel like we couldn't. We literally couldn't. And you mentioned it. The points at where the Texans were starting with the football, they got great field position many times in that game. I thought the Browns started off with horrible field position many times in the game, and these are not excuses. I'm not saying this is why we lost, but what I'm trying to say here is it's the little things that add up. And for me, that's kind of why I think this game went as horribly as it did. But obviously, there are a lot of details with that. There's a lot of little things that we'll talk about here. So that's a good time to transition. The offense. So you mentioned it, first half, and especially I think in that first quarter. I mean, we were going stride for stride. I think the Texans were moving the ball. CJ was moving the ball. So were we. We were getting the job done. Yet another game where David Njoku comes out and plays very well. And I thought Amari Cooper had a pretty good game. It wasn't to the level the last time when we played the Texans, that's for sure. But I thought he had a relatively good game. But Tristan, just overall, many different lanes we could go here with the offense. But tale of two halves, man. What do you have to say on it?
So yeah, let me knock out the good
Mm-hmm.
first, right? Um, I thought David Bell played really well, stepping up, filling in for Cedric Tillman, came down with everything. Um, that was the David Bell that we had been wanting to see this whole year. The third round pick out of Purdue, the guy that, on draft day, Brian Hartline tweets out, if you need a receiver, grab David Bell. And then like 5 minutes later, we grab
Mm-hmm.
him. Like that's the guy that we wanted to see this whole year. And it was nice to know that we threw him into a tough position in a playoff game, and he came up and he played well,
Mm-hmm.
man. I'm really impressed by David Bell, and this is a game that while the team and the fans and everybody else should look at and say this was a travesty. I think he should look at this and say, you know what, I'm capable of being a good receiver in the NFL. I'm capable, and you know, hopefully that feels him in the offseason and he can improve and be ready for next year. Because I thought he played really
Hmm.
well. You mentioned him, David
Real
Njoku.
quick, no,
Sorry, go
real
ahead. Yeah,
quick. I just want to throw this in here since you mentioned it. I pulled it up real fast. David Bell today had 8 receptions, which is crazy.
insane.
54 yards out of David Bell, which is
Mm-hmm.
huge. Um,
Oh,
no,
sorry
no,
to
no, go
cut
ahead.
you off here. There was one play where he it was like 2nd and 15, I want to say it
Hmm.
was, and he was running what in route. Yeah, he was running it in, um, and he cuts across, and Joe threw it high,
Hmm.
and it was like in between 3 defenders, and he comes up and he grabs it, and he's hanging on to it for dear life, and it was just such an impressive play
Hmm.
because he got hit by 2 guys with the third guy coming around him trying to knock the ball out, and he came down with it, and it was great. Yeah, his performance was
Do
fantastic.
you know before
Um,
before you go real
oh
fast?
yeah, go ahead,
Would
go
you
ahead.
believe me
Yeah.
if I told you that David Bell was the not yards leader? That was David Njoku with 93,
Mhm.
but as far as receptions go, it's David Bell with 8, David Njoku with 7, and then Harrison Bryant with 4, and Amari Cooper with 4. Elijah Moore had only 2. Like
Yeah, yeah,
dude, what in the world? What world do we live in?
yeah.
Like,
Exactly,
go ahead.
exactly.
I'm sorry.
Um, no, you're fine. But there's still a few more guys I want to give praise to. So David Njoku, as you mentioned, he came out and he was as
Mhm.
advertised. Like what we expected from him today, we got a great performance out of him. Um, yeah, it was a wasted good performance,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Same with David Bell. Like this was a career day for David
Literally.
Bell. Like this is nuts. Like the 54 yards doesn't do him
Uh-uh.
justice. Like he made some plays,
He earned
man.
them.
Like Joe went to him. Yeah, like he was good. He was effective, and he was exactly what we thought he would be, a good short
Hmm.
yardage guy. But regardless, third guy, you already said his name, Harrison Bryant.
How? Like,
Um,
how? How is Harrison Bryant like? Oh my gosh, dude.
listen, it, he stepped up and he made some plays,
Hmm.
man. Like, he came ready to play. And that's what pisses me off is like, it's playoff games like this where it's like, typically it comes down to your, like, the guys with the lesser roles stepping
Yep.
up. And we got that today. We got that today from those 2 guys. It was so frustrating because if everybody else plays up to the level that they're supposed
Hmm.
to, like those performances are absolutely amazing. They're complementary into a great playoff
Hmm.
win. But yeah, we'll get into it. Um, JOK was all over the field. He was fantastic. There was one play where I'll have to go back and watch the film. That touchdown that I can't. Brevin
Hmm.
Jordan is it?
Yeah.
I think the tight end. Um, if I'm not mistaken, I think that was JOK's
It
guy
was. Yep.
because there was him and then there was
Hmm.
Obo that were rushing CJ. Um, and the guy was just left on an island. Which, yeah, I'm almost certain it was JOK's guy,
No,
but
it. So not to jump in, but
no, go ahead,
yeah,
go ahead.
on that play, you had JOK was supposed to drop back into coverage. CJ was rolling out. Obo was rushing him. But I think what happened was JOK saw CJ rolling out, wanted to make the play, assumed somebody was going to pick him up. Because if you watch just the way that was structured, clearly JOK was supposed to drop back. I'm not going to blame him for it, even though it was his mistake. Like, I get what he was doing. It was see ball, get ball from him, which is what he does great. That's why we love him. But in that situation, that was just using our aggressiveness against ourselves. So, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I thought outside of that play, he had a really great
Mm-hmm.
game. Which, funnily enough, he really didn't even start to have like that great game until after that play.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, after that play, you try to make up for it. Yeah, just yeah. Um, The other guy I wanted to point out, part of the reason why I'm putting him in good is because pretty much everybody else had a terrible game, and I just didn't notice him out there. Denzel
Mm-hmm.
Ward. It didn't. I don't think he really got beat at all today. Um, I don't. There's no recollection of me of a busted coverage by him. Which, by the way, there were a bunch of busted coverages today. Um, I don't remember seeing a busted coverage by him. I'm trying to think, did he get beat? I think Collins beat him a couple of times, but I'm not sure. I can't. Again, I have to come back and watch the film on it again. I put a question mark next to his name, so if somebody's like watching this or listening to this and saying no, Denzel got burnt like 3 times, scratch it off my list.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Again, from my memory from watching this very traumatic experience, I'm almost certain that of the not so terrible parts of it, he was okay. But again, I have to watch the film back.
Yeah.
Um, Now the bad stuff. Um, Greg Newsome got absolutely just oh my god, he was sliced up. He was dissected. Bobby Slowick pretty much put a red X over him and said, "I'm feasting on you."
Mm-hmm.
And oh, it was so bad for him today. Um, he is usually not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think we know this. He is not that bad. He's one of the better nickel corners in the league. He's transcended into that guy with inside outside versatility too. He's not that bad. But today, man, oh man, I think Eli Apples had some better games. Like, that was terrible. Um, I'm sure we'll get into that more as well. So I'll leave it at that with him. Offensive tackles, both of them, Hudson, uh, and my
Jerron
God,
Christian.
John Christian, yeah, got abused today. Um, Will Anderson and Grenard had absolutely feasted on them today. You know, we kind of knew that they weren't great at their positions, but what we had been getting out of them was okay. You know, like they were okay. They weren't a liability.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Today they were both liable, very very liable, huge liabilities, and technically on both the interceptions, it was their failure in pass pro that led to the interceptions. Of course, with bad throws from Joe. Um, yeah. Um, our D line got absolutely bodied. Absolutely. Like, on both sides of the football, we got demolished on the line of scrimmage. Um, Again, with Miles, it's hard because he gets chipped, he gets double teamed, he gets held. Um, you know, that's the type of stuff that just happens with him now because, you know, he's Miles Garrett. People treat him different. Offenses treat him different. Um, Everybody else on the D line today was pretty atrocious. Not gonna lie to you. I don't really remember any play that a D lineman made that JOK didn't really like put into their hands. Like Dalvin Tomlinson had like a tackle for loss, but JOK like got in there first, shot for a guy's legs, and it's like cleanup work. Their offensive line just absolutely killed us. And this D line is supposed to be the trademark of this defense, and it was terrible today. Absolutely atrocious. Got absolutely eaten alive by the offensive line from the Texans. The secondary, like as a whole, today, busted coverages. You know, guys just like I'll also say I was disappointed in MJ Emerson today. Not necessarily for like his coverage, like one on one. Again, that was a guy I didn't really see get burnt a whole lot. But the reason why I didn't put MJ Emerson on my good list was because he looked scared to make tackles today, man.
Hmm.
Like, there was a play in particular. Um, Nico Collins was coming around. I think it was an end around, or it was like a throw to the flat behind the line of scrimmage. I can't remember, but Collins was essentially like 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and MJ was like three in front of it, and all MJ really had to do was run up and meet him and hit him hard, and he runs up, does like a half-assed attempt at a tackle, and then JOK comes through and does the cleanup. And in a game like this, man, you can't be afraid to hit. MJ Emerson's a big physical guy. I know Nico Collins is bigger and more physical, but you can't like be afraid to throw a hit like that. That for me was just like, ugh, come on, MJ. He's much better than that. Much better than that. And it was disappointing. Safeties, I mean, how many times did we see guys get in behind him? How many tackles did we see not get done? And that is actually on the linebackers too. Like just missed tackles from the safeties and linebackers. Yeah, just pitiful from those guys. And this last one, I didn't think I'd be as upset with these guys as I am. Special teams.
Yeah.
Corey Bjorquez, man, like he's been a great punter this whole year, arguably one of the best punters in the league. He didn't flip field for us at all today.
No.
He was bad. Well, it's twofold because we couldn't pin them back at all to save our life. When we did, we got them off the field. But we couldn't get him pinned back to save our life. And every drive, Flacco was coming out and starting from his 10, his 15. Yep. The only time he got to start like further than that was off of touchdowns when we didn't return the football and it got brought out to the 25. Like it was brutal by the special teams unit today. I don't even think our Hopkins replacement, Riley Patterson, even had to kick once. So, I can't really say anything bad about him. Hell, they damn near blocked a couple of punts.
Yeah.
like it was bad all over the place, special teams. Just didn't come to play ultimately. That's all I've got for now. I am sure there's probably a whole nother level, a whole nother level that I haven't gotten to yet. This was just a list that I made in like 5 minutes during the middle of the game. Once when we were down 45-14. Derek, the good, the bad, and the ugly. What did you think?
Well, let's start with the good. Even though for me, I don't think there was a whole lot. I really don't. The biggest takeaway I had from this game as far as the good things is I don't care what position he plays. I don't care what his value is on the open market. I don't care what the value of the position is. Give JOK a blank check. He has to remain a member of the Cleveland Browns. Like that, it's just, that's it. Like JOK, similar to Grant Delpit and how Grant Delpit has leveled up and has played at an unbelievable level this year. JOK, game in, game out, every single play that he is on the field is making an impact some way, somehow. Like, you can't take anything away from JOK at all from this game. He played out of his mind, like you said. And the Texans relatively weren't able to run the ball for the most part. I know, obviously, if you look at the box score and as things kind of ended up, probably looks good. But as far as the meat and potatoes of that game, JOK shut down the run. Like, absolutely single-handedly shut down the run. So, it's a future discussion, but JOK has to remain a Cleveland Brown. I don't care how we have to do it.
He can be extended this offseason because this upcoming year is his last year. We can extend him, and we should. We should.
Yeah, no question. No question at all. But yeah, JOK is the number one shining star from this game, if you want to say it like that. For me, number two was David Njoku. Just came out, continued. I've been saying it week after week. He's the best tight end in football right now. He played like it. He still did. Did he have drops a couple times in this game? Yeah, sure. But For the most part, I thought he played very, very well. You know, Mari Cooper, same thing. I thought he played well. Kareem Hunt, 2 touchdowns. Didn't have a whole lot of yards, but hey, you put up points. And, that's what we needed. At that point in the game, it was a different story as far as how that game was going. So for Kareem Hunt to, on the shovel pass, get a touchdown and then just run it right up the middle for a touchdown, got to give some flowers to him. You mentioned him, David Bell had a really good game, career game. Is he, we'll have discussions in the offseason at wide receiver. I've certainly got a lot of opinions on it. But as far as what he showed today, he showed a lot of promise. And this is what I think we should have been getting out of David Bell. So, great to see. Harrison Bryant, I thought, was about as useless as the rock sitting in the driveway out there. And for him to do what he did today, even though it was really for nothing, I thought it was really good. So, there you go. I mean,
even though it was for nothing,
it didn't amount to anything. Like, it's not like Harrison Bryant was a key reason why we won the game. Like, we got blown out, but
thanks for a career
no,
game,
literally.
but go fuck yourself.
No, literally. I mean, that's how I feel. It's like I want to be like, hey, JOK, amazing game.
I'm laughing with you because it's just so ridiculous.
It sounds so funny to say because it's like you look at it and it's like, hey, the Browns got absolutely wiped the floor with them.
Oh my god!
But
Derek,
there's a couple guys who had really good games. Like
Derek, what if I told you before the game started, right, that David Bell was going to have 8 receptions and I don't know the
54
stats,
yards, I think.
54 yards, and Harrison Bryant was going to have his best game as a Brown and be really impactful. You would think, damn, we really smoked them, didn't we?
No, you know what I would be thinking? I'd be saying, yeah, man, the drugs in PA must be something different because I don't know what y'all got going on, but
yeah, right.
Dude,
geez.
It's just like, I don't know, man. This game is so confusing, but I'll leave it at that. That's the good, right? The bad. No Browns After Dark. The bad. There's a lot. There is so much here to discuss. We could sit here for the next 2 hours talking about it, which obviously we're not going to. But the offensive line was horrible today. Like, Jerron Christian, James Hudson, you mentioned them. But, in agreements with you, is that a word? Agreement. Agreements. There you go.
No,
I don't know. Right. Whatever.
Agreement.
I'm agreeing with you. That's the point. They sucked. They were horrible. And I think Will Anderson is a great player. I think I can't remember.
Jonathan Grenard.
I think they're good players, right? Should you be absolutely manhandled by them? No, you should not. And I think both of those guys sucked. I hate to do this, but we gotta talk about it. As much as great moments as he's given us, and as thankful as I will be for what his time here in Cleveland was, Joe Flacco sucked today. Decision making was horrible at times today. He held on to the ball way too long. And yes, that's a part of the offensive line and their struggles. But Joe Flacco, for me, it was almost like I had a little bit of, and I'm not saying this name to hate on him, and I know he's a hot topic in the Browns community whenever you bring his name up. But Baker, when he was here, every time he dropped back, I was like, okay, how long is he going to hold on to this ball? Every single time it felt like he was holding on to the ball too long, and then you'd be worried about him making a bad decision. That's how I felt with Flacco today, and I have not felt that way with Flacco once since he's been a member of the Cleveland Browns, and that sucked. That really sucked. The run game. Tristan, we talked about it. If this team was going to be successful, you have to have a run game. We had none. We had no run game. Kareem Hunt, I just saw the stats. I think he had 2 touchdowns, but he had like 27 yards. He was the rushing leader. So I don't have the stats in front of me at the moment, but if Kareem Hunt was your rushing leader at 27, that tells me Jerome Ford sucked. So I think he had I think he finished with like 22 or something. But we had no run game. None at all. Uh man, I'll leave it at that offensively. But defensively, I'll save the one because obviously we're gonna talk about it. I'll save him for last. But defensively, I thought nobody on that defensive line made an impact whatsoever. C.J. Stroud, whether it be him just being great, he got the ball out fast, but I thought there were times where it was like, okay, where's the pass rush? And nobody was there. I think Walker today, A-Walk, struggled. Normally he plays.
Anthony Walker wasn't playing.
Was he not?
No, he's on IR, man.
Wait, hold on. Why am I not thinking right? Hold on. It was Taki. Was it Tony Fields out there?
Who's number 30? Because that's who I think it was. Although I might be wrong.
I don't know. Tony Fields is 42. JOK 6. Taki's 44.
Yeah, let me see. Because I know what you're talking about.
I feel really stupid now because I don't know why I totally thought A-Walk was playing.
Mm-hmm. Let me see if I can look and see who.
Well, anyway.
But yeah. Go ahead.
While you're looking that up, whoever it was, I thought outside of JOK, the linebackers were beyond below average. Taki at times was good. I noticed him. But yeah, man. And then this secondary was atrocious. I mean, Ronnie Hickman has been playing out of his mind so far. He got bullied today. And I think a part of that was CJ knows him. Like, I hate to say that, but I think that is a part of it. Juan Thornhill has been such a disappointment for me. Tristan, I don't know if you feel the same, but when we signed Juan Thornhill, I thought he was the cherry on top of this defense and the cherry on top of the secondary. To just be that guy who cleans things up in the secondary. And he's been hurt off and on throughout the year, and he's been okay at times. But, boy, has he been disappointing, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah. So I think it was Tony Fields who it must have been because him or Jordan Kunasek, because they are the only ones that of the rest of the linebackers, I think they're the only ones that even had a tackle.
Okay.
Each of them was only one. Although I know that Deron Harmon had a rough game too. But yeah, it's hard to pinpoint. We can look back at it, but not for a very long time because I think we're both traumatized.
No, for real. But just overall, I thought the safeties played terrible. I think we were missing Grant Delpit big time today. The corners, they didn't have their best game for sure. But like you said, I thought Denzel Ward played fine. Like, he was okay. He was fine. Emerson, for the most part, was fine. But let's just go ahead and transition here, because one of the topics that I wanted to discuss today, I know it's more of an off-season topic. Greg Newsome. This is not a emotional reaction. I think, Tristan, you know me well enough to know when I'm just pissed off and I say things I shouldn't say. This is not one of those times. I genuinely believe that Greg Newsome should be moved off of this team for multiple reasons. One, when you look at the Browns, and he got absolutely picked apart and just obliterated today. Like, there is not a word that you can use to describe how bad Greg Newsome was today, in my opinion. Like, every single time he is being picked apart, and you mentioned it, it seemed as if they targeted him every single time, and they knew the weak link, and they took advantage of it. And blame whoever you want. You can blame Jim Schwartz. I don't care. Blame whoever you want for that. But at the end of the day, players have to play at a certain standard, at a certain level. And Greg Newsome simply did not today. And for me, this is, like I said, kind of a futuristic viewpoint. The Browns have two elite corners in Martin Emerson or MJ Emerson and Denzel Ward. Two elite top tier corners in the NFL. And I have no problem saying that about Emerson right now. I think he's proven it. And until otherwise, I consider him elite. Greg Newsome is, out of all three of these guys, he's the most versatile. He can play man and zone at a high level for the most part. He can play inside and out. But for whatever reason, these two guys, and Denzel Ward and MJ Emerson, have surpassed him, and it just continues to get worse. And I think over the course of the year, it has continued to get worse. I think Greg Newsome has had a lot of really good moments this year, and I'm not saying this as in he sucked all year and we got to get rid of him. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is this: Greg Newsome, in my opinion, is not best used as a nickel corner. I don't think he's best used as a nickel corner. I think you need to use him with complete versatility, inside, outside, move him around, flip him. Like that's what he needs. He doesn't need to just play one spot. He's kind of the Swiss Army knife in the secondary. For me, as far as the future goes, I don't think we need him. I think, as well as Andrew Berry has drafted corners, which we've seen so far, I think you can easily draft somebody like in the third round who can come in as a rookie and be a good depth piece. And I think what we've seen out of Cam Mitchell this year so far when he's played, he has been good enough. And I think he will continue to get better. If I'm Andrew Berry, you got to factor in also you're going to have to make a decision on Newsome anyway because you have his fifth-year option coming up. I'm not paying him. I'm not paying him. I know Denzel Ward has been hurt. I know he is not reliable, and I understand you can't have enough corners in the NFL. But my biggest takeaway from the game today is the Browns have some needs. Whether it be offensive tackle. Obviously, there's injury, right? DeJuan Jones is going to come back. Jack Conklin's going to come back. That's a whole nother discussion. Jedrick Wills. But if you ask me today, hey, if you could trade Greg Newsome and move up in the draft and get a better draft pick, or trade Greg Newsome and bring in a really good receiver who's not like a top tier receiver, but he's a really good receiver, I would do it. If you told me I could flip Greg Newsome and get an impact player on, a deal that makes sense for the Browns, 1,000% I'm doing it. It's been great. We've had three really good corners, and the secondary has been really good. And unfortunately, for these guys and for the fans, it was mismanaged by Joe Woods. And Jim Schwartz has come in and has used these guys right, and you've seen them play at a high level. But here's the reality. NFL teams don't have three really good corners. They usually have one really good one, a second solid one, and then depth. For us, we have two great corners, and I think Greg Newsome is really good. I think it is more beneficial for the Browns to move him and fill in some other holes than to hold on to him and let it be what it is. At this point, I think he's more impactful on a different team, and I think if you flip him, that will impact you as far as beneficially much better what you would get back than what we have now. That's just my opinion. And him playing terribly today just further pushed that opinion for me. So what say you about that? Because I feel like we're gonna have an interesting discussion here with this.
Yeah, I disagree. For me, I think that Greg Newsome suffers from. I think he suffers from being compared to MJ Emerson and Denzel Ward. And what I mean by that is this: those two guys are very good, very good. You could argue two of the top 10 at their position. Um, you know, for me, Greg Newsome is a really, really good corner who today had a really bad day, and it's going to get um, overblown. And I know your argument isn't just over today. And I hear your argument because you're saying, do we really need him? My answer personally is yes. And the reason why is because the way that we play in the Schwartz system is that, it's heavily man, right? And we have a lot of times we put corners on islands because we want to stack the box, we want to get blitzes, we want to use 5, 6 guys on the D line. Like, we want to get pressure, generate pressure, create headaches for the opposing team's quarterback. Um, Denzel Ward, as you said, has an injury history, and I think we all know he has an injury history. I can't remember the last time he's played a full regular season. I don't even know as though he ever has in the NFL.
Ooh, I don't think he
Um,
has.
yeah, so um, with that being said, if we were to lose Denzel or if we were to lose MJ, Greg can fill in that cornerback 2 slot, and he won't be a liability. And he will be somebody that can step into that role and be solid for you, and he won't be a problem. Today he absolutely was, but I think every player is entitled to have a terrible game. I mean, there were times where a guy that a lot of the fan base has been clamoring to get back onto this team, Jarvis Landry, he would have games where he drops the ball 5, 6 times. Like so my argument is this: like, as a corner, when you have a bad game, it's terrible. It's
Mm-hmm.
terrible because the effects are so damaging. Versus if it's a wide receiver, you drop a ball, um, you know, that sucks, but you can make up for it the next play. Corner, it's like, can't really make up for it because if they get points off of that, you can't do anything really to take the points away unless you get a pick six, which is all based off of what the quarterback does with the football. So, um, what I will say is this: the only way that I see a potential move uh, from him from Greg Newsome is if the way I see it is like if you have a team that desperately needs corner help and he could go be a number 2 or a number 1 somewhere and they wanted to trade a big haul, and you'd obviously pick up his 5th-year option and then move him, like, I guess that could make sense, but you're only doing that if and only if you either get an amazing haul for him that you wouldn't be able to turn down, or if Cam Mitchell has shown you throughout practice this whole year that he's
Mm-hmm.
legit and he is a guy that can play that nickel spot really well, and in situations can also go on the boundary and play on the boundary at a good NFL level. That's the only situation I see us moving off of Greg Newsome. I like Greg Newsome. I think he's a good player. Um, but I understand your concerns
Mm-hmm.
because we do have a really deep corner room. I just think that because we have depth and a piece in the depth like Greg Newsome, we're able to play as aggressive as we do. And the majority of the season, it's been a godsend to be able to play like that. Um, Today was just a terrible day. I really don't see this as a ginormous issue. What I will say is this: so I would take Greg Newsome's 5th-year option, and I would treat it as though uh, this is his last year, and we're essentially doing a tag and
Mm-hmm.
trade next year because I just don't think we have the cap space
Mm-hmm.
for him. We won't have the cap to have him because keep in mind also that at the end of this next season, MJ Emerson's going to be in line for a big
Yep.
deal. So it's getting
Mm-hmm.
tight, right? So I hear what you're saying, And to some extent, I agree. But I think he provides a lot of value that it's just because of the fact that he just so happens to be on the same team as two
Mhm.
elite corners that he just looks worse and doesn't look good at all. I don't think that's the case for him.
Yeah.
But, I get your argument, though.
Yeah. So I want to clarify because I think I kind of did a little. I did a very broad like explanation of why I'm saying what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
I hear you.
But let me clarify this. So at the end of the day, like when I'm talking about this argument and the reason why I bring it up and why my opinion is what it is, this is the perspective I'm looking at it from. You mentioned it. You have Martin Emerson coming up on a contract, right? At some point here shortly, within the next 2 years.
So this was his second
Okay,
year, so he's got 2 more years.
so
So he'll have next
mhm,
year and then the year after on his rookie deal. But at the end of next year, I'm assuming as long as if he doesn't completely crap the bed next
mhm,
year, you're probably going to want to
yep,
extend him. So you want to have the idea of what you're going to extend him to.
yeah,
But realistically, you could take Greg Newsome's 5th year and keep them both for the duration of that, and then just pretty much treat Greg Newsome as, you know, it's your last year on the franchise tag, kind of
yeah.
situation. So,
Okay, so yeah, but this is my thought process on the matter. I know the Browns and I know Andrew Berry has done an unreal job with the cap, and I know he's done amazing things, stretching it, restructuring, bringing guys in, paying prices we didn't think we would be able to. I understand all that. But here's the reality. We can stretch it, we can pull it, we can do whatever we want with it. At some point, there has to be new lanes to figure out the cap situation. And I'm not saying that's going to be an immediate thing. I'm not saying that this offseason we can't do anything. I'm not saying that down the line we won't be able to do anything. But here's my opinion. Under no circumstances can you let Martin Emerson or JOK walk out the door. Under no circumstances. Unless, like you mentioned, they just absolutely fall apart and they're terrible and you got to move on. There's zero chance I'm letting either one of those guys walk out the door. And, we can say this is a down the road situation here, but timing is everything. And for me, I want to get the best return on my asset in Greg Newsome as I possibly can. For me, I mean, maybe people would disagree with this. I think the time is now. I think the time is this off season because here's the thing. Here's what you got to understand too, and this is more for everybody watching. What are the key positions in the NFL now? It's a passing league. Quarterback, you have to have a quarterback. You have to be able to defend the pass. And I think corner has become such a position where you have to be set. You have to have some guys there, or you will absolutely be picked apart. And I think, despite where we sit now, where there's going to be people who watch this who are say, Greg Newsome is worth a 5th-round pick, or he's worth a 4th-round pick, and you're not going to get anything for him. To the point that you just said, he gets overshadowed. And I think right now, if the Browns put Greg Newsome on the market and said, hey, we don't have to trade him. Like, we're fine if we need to keep him, but we would like to see what's out there. And it was rumored. I'm not saying this is a fact. I'm not saying this is the truth. But way back in the day, which, makes it sound long ago, it really wasn't that long ago, we were talking about Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. And the rumor was, hey, Greg Newsome is included in that trade package. Like, that's what they want. At that point, it was like, no, that's way too much to give up. But where we sit now, and at least my opinion on where we're at right now, when it comes to making future decisions and who you want to keep around, who you want to make the core of this team, I don't see Greg Newsome as a core member of the Cleveland Browns anymore. Like at one point, sure. But given where Martin Emerson is at and how well Martin Emerson has played, I can't be putting a 3rd-round corner as a member of the core of this team. I can't be making a huge financial investment into the third corner. I can't do it. I just can't. So I say that all to say this. I think the only way, as far as the cap and as far as figuring this all out, that we can keep MJ Emerson and keep JOK is to let one of these guys go. And for me, if I'm going to let one of these guys go, it's going to be Greg Newsome. And if there's a time to let him go, it's when you can get the most out of him. And Greg Newsome has some time left on his contract. He has that 5th-year option like you mentioned. But if the Browns wait, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, because I get what you're saying and I'm not disagreeing. I wouldn't be upset if that happened. But where we sit now, if you said, hey, you got 2 more years out of Greg Newsome on this rookie contract, given that 5th year, so 2 more years, that is much more attractive to a team that is corner needy than, hey, you have a year left and it's a 5th year and then you got to extend him, right? If you put Greg Newsome in their system and you say, hey, you have 2 years of this guy, right? If you want to keep him, hey, you can keep him. And obviously the franchise tag is a thing too. So you could really get 3 years out of him if you wanted. To me, I think that offers up enough to get a solid trade package for him. And if that is the case, 1,000% I'm moving on. I think it's a business decision. I think it's best for the future. And as much as I hate to say it, like, I know sometimes we overlook the fact that these players are people too. And you could say the same thing with coaches as well. It is a business. It's a business. And I think Andrew Berry has made a lot of good business decisions. And I think this is one of them. And that's why, for me, I think this is urgent. I think if you want to get a return for Greg Newsome, I think it has to be now. That's just my opinion. And it's more so in the interest of keeping JOK and keeping Emerson. So that's why I say what I say. So do you have anything more you want to add on this, or you want to?
I guess the last thing I'll say is this. Again, I wouldn't trade him unless if you got a really good package for him. As far as a team that could be interested, like the Detroit Lions, their corners are god awful. Their secondary really needs a lot of help. And that is a team that's close to winning. So maybe you could convince them to give you like a 1st-round pick or something for him. But even in that, like, the thing is, for me, I think you take Newsome's 5th-year option this summer and you extend JOK, and then after this next year, you move off of MJ, or you move off of Greg. But at the same token, I could see why potentially AB looks at it and says, you know what, let me trade him now. But again, for me, it's tough because I said it. I like the guy. I think that he adds a lot of value to our team and allows us to play in that certain style. And for me, I think if we're really trying to be a Super Bowl winning team, a guy that can provide as much value as he can at the cap number that he can for next year, that's the type of guy that you need to win a Super Bowl in my eyes. And the other thing is, I just don't know how replaceable he is. And listen, maybe we get our answer this offseason and we end up dealing him. And Schwartz ends up saying, like, no, I think Cam Mitchell's the guy. Like, it could be the case. Who knows? But for now, I'm not comfortable with the idea of moving off of Greg in my eyes. So
let me ask you this. Ask you this. You're Andrew Berry. Congratulations. You're now Andrew Berry.
Thank you.
Great job, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Newsome, put him on the market to field offers. Would you do it just to field offers this offseason? Not saying you have to trade him or you want to, just saying, hey, I'll listen, would you do it?
Would I listen to
Yeah.
offers?
All right, let me rephrase this. Would you
Yeah.
consider, I should say, would you consider trading him from listening to offers? I guess is the right way of putting it.
Well, yeah. I mean, if a team's gonna give me a ridiculous offer for him that I can't refuse, yeah, I'm gonna take it. Um, so I mean, yeah, I would listen to the phone call. I'd listen to the offer,
Okay.
but again, for me personally, you would have to offer me a lot to get Greg Newsome away. Like I'm talking like a first round
Mm-hmm.
pick because again, we invested a first round pick in this guy, and assuming we extend his 5th year option, you know, we're gonna want that
Yeah, yeah.
guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're gonna have 2 years left, so I just honest to God, you would have to trade quite a bit. The only the lowest I could do is like if the Bears like decide that they are going to go all in next year and they end up trading like one of their like top of the second round
Mm-hmm.
picks. Yeah, I'll do that too. Although I think they already traded it for Montez Sweat. I'm not sure. I can't remember, but
Yeah, I don't
who
know.
knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? But yeah, I mean that's maybe something I would listen to. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. It's just for me, I would feel uncomfortable letting Greg walk out the building, knowing the style of defense that we play and the versatility, as you said, that he
Mm-hmm.
has. And when he isn't, you know, playing the worst game of his career, he's a really solid piece
Mm-hmm.
for us. Um, I'd have a really tough time letting him go, and I'd have an even harder time trying to explain to fans the following year that if Cam Mitchell doesn't pan out, why the hell we let go of Denzel Ward when this was a Super Bowl run and we could afford, or
I was
Denzel
gonna
Ward,
say, I was
geez,
like, whoa.
Greg Newsome. I would have a really hard time being able to explain to fans why we let him out the building if Cam Mitchell ends up not being the guy that we think he could be. Um, you know, even though we could
Mm-hmm.
afford to have Martin or jeez, I was saying Martin Emerson. My God, I'm all over the
It's
place
all
today.
good.
Even though we could afford to have him,
Yep.
so that's the part of this where I wouldn't.
No, I got you. I understand. I think the difference where we lie is I think I'm much more comfortable moving on from him. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I shouldn't be, but I don't know. At this point, like I'll hand to God, go on record, did not like the Emerson pick. I thought Emerson had a lot of problems that I thought were going to be even bigger problems in the NFL. I was wrong. I was completely wrong. And I am so thrilled that I'm wrong. Same thing with like DeJuan Jones. Like there's many times that I can say, "Hey, I didn't like that pick." They've turned out great. So at this point,
You hated the Martin Emerson pick.
yeah, I'm sitting
Oh,
back here saying, "Okay, I trust Andrew Berry with certain positions, and one of them is corner." So when it comes to the future, and I think I tend to have like a more of a broader long term view, maybe, and maybe I'm wrong for that, but I trust Andrew Berry. Hey, if I'm Jimmy Haslam, I say, hey, listen, obviously if somebody's there that you like better, take that person. But hey, would you mind please finding us like a corner in the third round that you think that you like? Um, that could come in and at the very minimum be good depth. Like I feel so comfortable putting that in the hands of Andrew Berry versus, hey, can you go find us a third round receiver? Like obviously we've struggled. So um I don't know. I think I'm much more comfortable, but I understand why you wouldn't be. So but let's table that discussion. So um wrapping up here, only one thing I wanted to discuss last, unless you had anything else you wanted to talk
no,
about.
no.
Um, I just wanted to kind of do a quick final like send off on this season, and let's just kind of talk about the season as a whole. So the Browns finish the 2023-2024 season going 11-6, making the playoffs first round exit. But you did that with no Deshaun Watson, no Nick Chubb, no two left tackle or no two tackles, no backup right tackle, um, and multiple other injuries throughout the year. Tristan, if I told you this at the beginning of the year, that the Browns were going to have all these huge key injuries, 5 different starting quarterbacks, you bring Kareem Hunt back, like all these different things that happened, what would you say?
I would say uh, that it must have been a really great culture defining
Mm-hmm.
year. Um, a year in which you got some clarity on your head coach and your GM. Um, and a year that, you know, people can look at and say, you know, the Browns that used to be, the Browns that were, um, going and putting Denver to the blade 2 times in a row in the AFC Championship game, and then just barely letting it slip away. The Browns that the Browns that Otto Graham and Jim Brown and um, all these other legends, you know, going back and connecting that history to now, you got a hell of a lot closer to that. Obviously we're not quite there. We're not in AFC Championship games, um, but this to go through that adversity, um, you know, I, if you told me that before the year, I'd say this was a successful year and a big step forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think a couple things for me, like as far as big takeaways from the season as a whole. Um, just outside of the Cleveland Browns, like I know that's not what I asked, but outside of the Cleveland Browns, boy, is there a lot more. There is a lot more in the AFC, right? CJ Stroud is now another great quarterback in the AFC, and that's a problem. Um, but here's my thing with that. The Browns, despite all this, were in the mix all year long, right? Even when, and the clip of like all the media people being like, well, Brown season's over, like wrap it up. Um, despite that, right? Even when us as fans were probably like, oh, maybe this won't be a good year. It was. And, when you factor in how the start of the year was, right? And you you come out and you just absolutely lay it to the Bengals at home opener in Cleveland. I was there. That was incredible. Like that was awesome. And then, week 2, you go to Pittsburgh and Nick Chubb happens and Deshaun Watson not playing well. And I think it was kind of an early preview of what the season was going to look like. Some ups and some downs, and it's like that every year with every team. Um, but for the Browns, this season was resiliency, and that's a word that's been used a lot. Because I mean, I'm not going to go through every game, but how many close games were we in? And how many close games did we pull out? And upsetting the
Yeah,
49ers, coming back and beating the Ravens. Like, this is a team to be proud of.
yeah, for sure,
Yeah,
for sure. I'm with you. Um, you know, and just the year prior, how many one-score games did we
exactly.
lose?
Yep.
like, and even with the adversity that we had, we were winning those close games. Um, and we looked like a team that was never out of it. You know, it's just a shame that it ended the way it did. Like, honest to God, I would have rather, and it's obviously easy saying this after the fact. I I would have been totally okay. Um, you know, if we had lost this game like 20-17,
Mm-hmm.
last kick of the game, Kaimi Fairbairn, walk off
Mm-hmm.
winner, right? It would have been more devastating for sure,
Mm-hmm.
heartbreaking. Um, but you'd hold your head up a little higher, and it's just the narrative that is going to trail after just how bad this was. But I'm with you, Derek. I mean, you look at this season, um, yeah, just a lot to be proud of. Um, never really got a run with your true best team.
Mm-hmm.
Never really got a chance. Um, there was never really stability until Flacco kind of came in. Funnily enough, there was just so much turnover, so much turmoil, and the fact that this team fought through it, battled through it, persevered through it. Um, you know, the DNA of the team and the culture in that locker room is miles, miles, miles
Mm-hmm.
better than what it was during those tough years. Um, I got a lot of hope for next year, um, and I think next season, has the opportunity to be uh, a year in which we really burst onto the scene,
Mm-hmm.
and we really start to go from being a team that finds way to win and being gritty and being competitive to a team that is truly
Mm-hmm.
dominant. This off season it's gonna be painful for the first week or so, maybe even a little bit longer, but then the excitement towards next year will start to build. We'll go through the excitement of the off season, the additions, you know the projections, predictions, uh, and we're gonna run it back next year. And um, I gotta imagine that this was the first step to really starting to become
Mm-hmm.
a true winning organization.
Yeah, I I completely agree. And it's so funny to say that off of the backs of Joe Flacco, off the backs of Jerome Ford, off the backs of PJ Walker and like DTR. Like it's so crazy. It's so crazy. Uh that the story of this year is what it is. But um I've been saying it, and I said it at the beginning of the season. Enjoy it. Enjoy this year. Enjoy this ride. Enjoy this journey for multiple different reasons, and especially like defensively. Right, this defense has been incredible all year. For me, today does not define this defense at all, but this has been a team where there's been many times, obviously, as Browns fans, where it's like it's tough being a Browns fan. And sure, did we have those moments this year? Yeah. And is today one of those moments? Yeah, it is. But um, when it comes to the season as a whole, this season was a season where I am not ashamed, and I'm never ashamed, but that's like I'm proud. And I believe that my team is just as good, if not better, as your team, whoever that is. And I think that remains the same. I think that this offseason is going to be very interesting. I think this offseason is going to be very, very interesting because, Tristan, we have heard what over the last couple of years? I mean, the video team has done building the Browns, and it's been all about building this team and building this organization. In my opinion, it's built, and the Browns changed the name of it. And I'm not saying this because of that, but I genuinely believe this team is built. We have the coach, we have the GM, we have the core. Now becomes stability. And good teams always find ways to replace guys in the draft, and they can let good players walk out the door and they can replace them and still play at a high level because of A, the system, and B, people who are calling the shots. And for me, that's what's next. We've done a great job with free agency for the most part. We've done a great job with drafting for the most part. Now what's next? Are these guys going to step up? Alex Wright, is he going to step up? And is he going to be that 1B that we think he can be, you know. So there's a lot of questions. I think there's a lot of questions to be asked this offseason. And you know, the cool thing about it, at least for me, Tristan, and I know probably for you and us as Browns fans, I feel like we don't have to worry. For the first time in a long time, I feel like we don't have to worry of, hey, is this team going to fall on its face next year? Because I don't think this team's falling on their face anymore. I think this team and this organization, like you said, is stepping up into that consistent level of play. You know, um, it's exciting. It is, but at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot of details that need to be ironed out, and that's what's exciting for me, is because I sit here today on whatever it is, February whatever 13th, I think 12th, uh,
January
or
13th.
February January
Yeah.
13th, and I can't tell you which position group is going to be our first pick drafted. I can't tell you. I can give you some ideas. I can tell you what I want. I can tell you, you know, but I don't know. I don't know who we're going to go out and sign in free agency. I can't tell you the positions. I can't tell you who we should trade for. Like, there's so many wide open things here heading into this offseason. And the thing about that is, this is when you have to trust your front office and you have to trust your management to make the right decisions, draft the right guys. When it's not so obvious, right? We don't have, hey, we need to go out and get a left guard. Job done, right? There's no obvious open holes on this team right now. It's just about filling them and kind of you know, this is not probably the best analogy, but it's almost like the road is paved, but those few cracks in it, you know, how are you going to fill those cracks is kind of how I view it. So it's going to be interesting. You know, with that being said, last podcast talked about the future of this channel and everything.
Yeah.
We're going to be here every step of the way. We're going to be here all off season. We're going to be talking about it, and I'm excited. So, you know, let the good times roll. But Tristan, your Cleveland Browns are 11-6, made the playoffs. I'm happy. So,
Yeah, I'm with you. God. It's like it's hitting me now, man.
no,
I mean, I said it multiple times on here. I didn't want this season to end.
I don't either.
I had so much pride, and I still do have so much pride in this team and the way they've stepped up and the resilience and everything. And just sucks that it's over. And I'll never, never forget that Jets game with you. That will be with me for a very long time. So, yeah, goodbye the 23-24 season, and let's bring on the 24-25 season.
Yep. That's the best part. I know this is really sad, and trust me, I get you. I mean, it is sad. It really is. It's sad to see a good team end. But here's the good news. I think we're picking up right where we left off next year. And I think this team is going to roll into next season, play at a high level. Who knows what happens, right? The NFL is crazy. You know, did Philadelphia Eagles fans think they were going to end up with A.J. Brown? Probably not. You know, did Miami Dolphins fans think they were going to end up with Tyreek Hill? Probably not. You know, that's the beautiful thing where we sit as fans. Who knows what's, you know, coming down the line? Who can become available? And what's going to happen? We don't know. You know, we're sitting here on the day that it ended. But the good news is I think there's a bright future ahead. And I don't know about you, Tristan. I assume the same. And in fact, I know the same. I don't know why I said I don't know. but I have a hell of a lot of trust in the man who's leading the charge. And I have a hell of a lot of trust in this team now versus a couple years ago. Because a couple years ago, there would have been brash decisions made. There would have been, yeah, your thing moved. But there would have been like, oh my gosh, this guy's available. We got to go trade a bunch for OBJ, right? This management, this team, the people we have leading the charge now are going to make smart decisions. They're going to make the right decisions. Not every time. You can't say every time they will. But you got to have trust in your leadership. And at the end of the day, heading into this offseason, I have trust in the leadership. I have trust in the direction. And I have trust in the vision for the team. So, I think we can leave it at that for whatever that's worth. I know a lot of people are going to be very negative today, and that's fine. I get it. I do. I am too. I'm very sad that this part of our lives right now is gone, and this team is done. But, guess what? There's always next year, which is what we've lived off of, and I think next year's going to be even better. So,
Yep.
So, anything else you want to add?
Just go Browns, and see you in the off season.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's already here.
Yeah, I guess technically we're here, but thanks again, everybody. I'm putting this out obviously in clips and as the full podcast, what I'm planning on doing. So if you're here to the end, I just want to say thank you for everybody who was here during this season consistently. Thank you to the Browns. Thank you to everybody on this team, everybody on this coaching staff that made it fun for us here as fans, and also us here as people who talk about this team and, for lack of better words, cover this team. Very fun year, and hey, let's make next year great. So with that being said, everybody, go Browns. And like I said, we're not going away. This is not a, hey, the season's over, goodbye, see you next year. It's not what we're doing. We'll be here to talk about everything. So look forward to that. So we'll see who goes on to win the Super Bowl. Only other thing I'll say is I'm rooting for the Lions now, kind of the Cleveland Browns of the NFC. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But yeah. All right, everybody. Have a good one. Thank you for everything. Go Browns.